All right, as I just captured a video at 9:53 a.m., pivotal time just for illustrative purposes, as the federal prosecution, the case against the state of California is complete with regard to proving that the government is indeed monitoring American citizens and understanding the nature of the crime of monitoring. It's inherently stalking conduct. In order for you to be subject to monitoring in violation of your constitutional rights, hence criminal monitoring, it is that which requires perpetual presence, which is stalking, criminal stalking by a public entity having no warrant or probable cause to do so, having no legitimate interest in doing so. This is the government that is stalking, in other words, and the government that is stalking is engaged in what is demonic, because monitoring is inherently satanic behavior as well. And the pattern of conduct that is underway while you are subject to monitoring is simultaneously exposing both demonic activity, both evidence of demon possession, while criminal activity by the government is being exposed. And it is literally putting names to that criminal conduct. And so I did capture video at 9:53 a.m. because on this day in 2024, as you can see, at 9:53 a.m. and 21 seconds, I am in Los Angeles, where I was working. I was employed, gainful employment, at Alvarado Gardens as the property manager at that apartment complex, and I also lived on the grounds. And this is at this time in February 2024, the entity had renewed its threat to my life. Okay, and how do I mean that? Because the entity never stopped gang stalking me from the moment where I was released from kidnapping in January of 2023. However, the entity stopped, and I want to say stop. The entity took a pause from stalking me in helicopters and stalking me by police, and also by the people in such an obvious manner so as to communicate a threat. When the entity is aware, again, when the entity that was monitoring me my whole life, and basically, but when I got to a point to where it became pronounced to me, and that became, particularly when I became an attorney, a licensed attorney, Satan and his demons were apparently very envious and threatened by that. This is where I started experiencing severe corporate bullying, as it's referred to. It's just severe, very violent forms of harassment at work as a licensed attorney, and being unwilling to put my license on the line. I just bowed out temporarily from practicing law because it was not a coincidence, but it was an ongoing common pattern, a circumstance that I was met with every firm that I went to. And so I went from practicing law into property management, which was something I had readily available as a trade. I could go right into that. And so I did. And that's when I recognized the pattern, that it wasn't just the fact that people in LA didn't like me. It's a pattern that's happening amongst, and it's true. The people in LA are demon possessed, so that's why they don't like me, okay? These are strangers that are demon possessed, and it is Satan that is using their persons, that animates their behavior, animates the person itself, and that's why you have the inexplicable hatred, the inexplicable acts of violence, and the inexplicable animosity. These are demon possessed people whom I've never done anything to them. And even if I say hi, the fact that they are demon possessed, a person that is in that condition will find something offensive about my saying hello to them, my tone of voice, the facial expression I had when I said hello, what I'm wearing when I say hello. But that's neither here nor there. I want to get to the pattern of conduct. As I became aware of it, I started over after being kidnapped. The entity has not been stalking me in such an obvious manner so as to communicate a threat. Remember, the entity is already threatening your life by gang stalking you, unbeknownst to you. To do so in the spectacular aspects of the pattern of conduct that I have, stalking me in a helicopter like you're going to drop bombs on me, that's the entity that might as well point a gun to your head in your face, wanting you to know specifically, I'm stalking you, I'm threatening you, and I want you to know it. Okay, that's the purpose of stalking in a helicopter in a manner that you are aware of, that you cannot be ignorant about, you can't ignore it. But the demons who are gang stalking you, they all act oblivious to it. They all act like nothing's happening. And that's also how you recognize that they're gang stalking. It is also through the specific environment. And so in February 2024, I am gainfully employed. The entity had just begun or resumed stalking me by helicopters, and doing so while I'm in the workplace. And that immediately I respond by documenting it. And so the entity is growing in its criminal threat, and I am growing in my documentation efforts. And so February 8, 2024, the entity engages in the spectacular act that I'm going to show now, and then you are mindful of what's happening at the same time in 2025. Remember, in the natural environment, if this is the sun, then the sun is going to engage in what is identical, substantially similar behavior that is expected by the natural environment. And so if this is indeed the sun that's over Alvarado Gardens, then it's not going to be somehow over Alvarado Gardens. And then you've got the duration of time analysis. The entity, that's a grand departure from being over Alvarado Gardens. And remember, before, that's Alvarado Gardens isn't where I started documenting. This is where the state of California started stalking me. There's a whole body of evidence that pre-existed my relocation to Los Angeles, which was nothing other than icing on the cake in order to prosecute the state of California, my relocation to an entirely different region and area, because Christ Jesus, who stands outside of time, has a plan to catch Satan red-handed. And that's exactly what happened. And so this is the body of evidence that's captured in an entirely different region. And while I was in Los Angeles, what was I comparing the evidence to the entire time? Ontario, California. And so the sun that is rising outside of my bedroom window in Los Angeles is certainly not anywhere over Woodside Senior Apartments, okay? The sun that's over or anywhere in Ontario, California is not rising outside of my bedroom window at Alvarado Gardens at 1806 apartment number 1. Nor under either circumstance is the sun rising and setting at one address. And that's exactly what I documented both in Los Angeles and what I documented in Ontario at Woodside Senior Apartments, where AVANATH Capital Management is a gang stalking landlord. And this is unprecedented criminal conduct that exposes the corporate actor, the landlord itself, to civil and criminal prosecution. And you do not have to meet that corporate office at all in order to prosecute, in order to be held liable under the the federal laws that exist, state and federal laws that exist. And also with regard to holding the landlords accountable. And just as an aside, the malice that the state is acting with is also speaking to what these landlords are not ignorant about. Okay, as working for a corrupt landlord, Speaker Companies knew exactly what Speaker Companies was engaged in, while my co-workers, my colleagues were gang stalking me. My residents were gang stalking me. Those living around the property were gang stalking me. My government was gang stalking me. And this is the same position now that I am outside of that position of working for not just one corrupt landlord. This is speaking to what the population, the state of California, is engaged in. And also, AVANATH Capital Management happens to be headquartered in Orange County, and they're gang stalking in Orange County. The evidence already establishes that. So, like I said, the entire pattern of conduct is speaking to what is under no circumstances impervious to prosecution, including the fact that it's a matter of demon possession. That's just relevant to how it would be addressed in federal court. Malice. Okay, the entities engaging in what is the P.O.C. And so on February 8, 2024, this is the fake sun that is hovering over the building, which is, all right, one second. I'm trying to see if I can zoom in. The building that is, if you can see that, I guess I can't zoom in right now because I've got it on share screen. This is building 1810 at Alvarado Gardens, and this is adjacent to my office. The evidence of the gang stalking that I was subject to in Los Angeles is published on the YouTube website. On my YouTube channel. It is the P.O.C., where you will see under 2024. That is where my documentation is published regarding what I was subject to while working as the property management for the property management company Speaker Companies, while I was the property manager at that venue subject to the P.O.C. And where I remain right now in Ontario at Woodside Senior Apartments. And what's going on at Woodside Senior Apartments, always remember the big picture. My prosecution of the people that stayed at Woodside Senior Apartments is the prosecution of the people of the state of California. And that is built into what you understand because of the ridiculousness of the evidence, in other words. And that's not my evidence is not ridiculous. My evidence is highly probative. It is ridiculous that the entity is relying on a fake sun that sits idle over one building all day. And because the entity, I can't pick my opponent, the entity picked me. And so as a result, I am prosecuting the entity that sought to target me. So they are the ones that have provided the evidence that they are stalking. That is the prosecution of the state of California that's maliciously and unintelligently revealed as maliciously engaging in a pattern of conduct in that specific environment, which defies nature. Both as you compare the two crime scenes, Alvarado Gardens, Woodside Senior Apartments, Los Angeles, Ontario, California, San Bernardino County, Los Angeles County, okay, and what the entity is doing under that light source. And then there's the engineered light, a whole other distinct method of identifying malice and identifying intentional criminal activity by a government that is relying on the people of the state who are intentionally and knowingly sharing in that criminal conduct. And then you're getting down to what is also a civil and criminal matter, where many of these properties, for example, because you're dealing with the population where they live, they're gang stalking. And a lot of these people need help to pay their rent. A lot of these people are relying on government programs, and they have the audacity to be violating what are the rights of American citizens while relying on government assistance. And they're gang stalking with the government. So again, the level of hypocrisy, the level of corruption, it's just beyond what you can fathom, and it does require evidence in order to prove all of the allegations, and that is exactly what the P.O.C. does, okay? But I just want to be clear, this is the light source over building 1810 North Alvarado Street, Los Angeles, California, Alvarado Gardens, where I was the property manager, the entity interfering with my right to a peaceful work environment, criminally interfering with quiet enjoyment as a resident also at that apartment complex where I lived and worked, and doing so in concert with the people of the state. And in this video, the state of California is gang stalking me in helicopter, and I am showing you down here at the bottom, this is at the same time, the fake sun is stationary over Woodside Senior Apartments at 408 West G Street in Ontario, California, where I have been for a prolonged period. And it is in conformity to the body of evidence that pre-existed my relocation to Los Angeles, where there is no reconciling what is clear evidence of a fake sun indeed. Everywhere in Ontario, the entity is keeping a fake sun over me. Everywhere in Ontario where I'm at the beginning of the day, that's where the sun is rising. Everywhere in Ontario, wherever it is, at the end of the day, that's where the sun is setting. And that's just not the natural environment. And it's just not even intelligent. It's not. It's on its face surrounding the state. And you're dealing with also what are the mentally ill. So the entity that is surrounded with this evidence continues to engage in very highly problematic conduct that gets a lot of people in trouble, a lot of people at the same time. Okay. And so the entity is not deterred by that. And so that's a threat to the ordinary target individual that's suffering in silence. Were it not the case that the federal government we're not already aware about what the state of California, what the city of Ontario is engaged in. If it were a circumstance where I could not substantiate my, again, these are outstanding, okay? Like, they are very high allegations, and all of them are supported by evidence, conclusive evidence, and beyond a reasonable doubt, okay? Fully confident in the case against the state. This is an entity that has every intention to accomplish murdering me, okay? That's why the government is gang stalking you. These are the demon-possessed who are bloodthirsty, and I want to be clear, in every regard, violent and aggressive and absolutely obsessive within their criminal endeavors to harm and inflict harm, and then also watch you. They enjoy voyeurism. They want to watch and study you while you suffer. The entity is facing a body of evidence and is still gang stalking. That is going to obsession. That goes to the disturbed mind state. That goes for the pilots flying commercial planes. That goes for the police officers with the police department. That goes for the governor. Well, I said it, but that's exactly what I mean. The entity that is in the position where these the different counties and the different cities and the different public officials and leadership positions to the mayors and those under the leadership of the mayor, it does rise up to the governor, who again is not merely derelict. The governor knows exactly what millions and millions of dollars is being wasted on, but they don't look at it as wasting. This is what California is actually concerned with. It's criminal surveillance. It's keeping American citizens under surveillance and literally taking those out that just don't fit in or that provide some sort of benefit to the entity. In my circumstance, the state of California and my gang stalking mother, Tracy Banks, sought to steal property that belongs to me, sought to profit off of my demise with insurance policies on me, claiming that I'm already dead when I have not died, not one time. I am alive in Christ. I have sacrificed my own personal will in order to live my new life in Christ Jesus, but I have never suffered a physical death. But on paper, that's not the case. And this is because the entity has conspired to murder and kidnap me. And gang stalking is that which is specifically done in furtherance of malicious murder. It is no small thing to be gang stalking at an apartment complex. And it is also in violation of HUD regulations. So everyone is losing housing based on the fact that you're engaged in domestic terrorism. You will not be supported getting any housing benefits while you're gang stalking, and that goes for the landlords. This is just basic policy and how you are going to approach and disincentivize a system that literally rewards what this ongoing criminal conduct, this lawlessness in the state of California. All right. So this is the P.O.C. that is underway at Alvarado Gardens at the top at 9:53 a.m. And then you're mindful of what it is that I'm documenting while you're looking at this fake sun. That's over me at Woodside Senior Apartments on the bottom of the screen. Again, this is at 9:53 a.m.
Currently 9:53 a.m. This is P.O.C. The people of the state, that is including my employer, the people of the state who are residents here in relevant position are monitoring with the Los Angeles Police Department. This is called demonic pacing, but it's criminal. It's serving what is monitoring with communication devices in violation of existing federal law.
So I just want you to see again, the LAPD flew around the fake sun that's hovering over the roof, okay? So this is what is so phenomenal about the entity that is gang stalking. And this is, let me connect this internet 1 second. Okay. This is the P.O.C.
On the property
is gang stalking. They're flying around the fake sun
and amplifying the noise. This is the light source.
Now, that which is over building 1810 is not sitting over the roof of Woodside Senior Apartments in Ontario, California. It's not going to cause any sunlight to it. The object itself is not going to be over the roof of Woodside Senior Apartments in alignment to where I'm at apartment 51, where the documentation already proves this is where it sits all day long until the end of the day. It's not going to cause any sunlight over the property. Like you see, the demons that are gang stalking unit number 52. That's the evidence that you're looking at, the fact that they are gang stalking. And they're maliciously and intentionally and continuously doing so. They are also in an environment which proves their criminal engagement with the state of California that has an entire system of targeting American citizens underway, where that which is over building 1810 at the same time on the same day in 2024 is not going to result in what is sunlight that is, you can clearly see, touching the front door. All right, and causing sunlight to appear through the peephole. All right, that's not sunlight under any circumstances. Okay, the sun that, as you can clearly see, that's above us, because that's where the sun is. The sun is outside. The sun is above us. The sun is supposedly so hot that it wouldn't even be at such a low elevation. But nonetheless, this is, again, another example of how highly unintelligent the entity is, okay? But placing this hovering light source does not cause light to come at a downward trajectory and then bend at a sharp angle horizontally through what is the very thick reflecting material of the peephole. That's laser-like conduct with this light, which is not sunlight. And it's also incongruent with nature. The sunlight that's coming from the sun that's outside of the building above us is not causing light to shoot through the peepholes. It's also not going to stream across the ceiling, as I'm showing, as I document on an ongoing basis inside, like here behind the door on the inside of the apartment. So I'll show you what I mean by the light activity. This is the gang stalker that was monitoring me moments before. Again, another stalker monitoring a woman inside of a private space. Gang stalking, monitoring is a violent sex offense. They're monitoring your genitalia. It's not just me sitting on the couch. When I go into the restroom, when I am in the shower, when I am disrobed, when I'm engaged in personal and private activity, it is a matter of public information amongst the government and amongst everybody in the city. That is an exceedingly violent sex offense that no landlord should be partaking in or profiting from either. And that's exactly what they're doing when your residents are gang stalking. When the city is gang stalking and you're gang stalking with it by virtue of use of your property, by virtue of your gang stalking employees, and by virtue of the residents that are monitoring with those demons that come onto the ground. You will be civilly and criminally liable for it. This is how you're going to prosecute based on the level of malice that is inherent to the P.O.C. by the state of California. There is no sunlight that's going to cause any sunlight to come through the peephole The product, that's not the product of sunlight. And that which you can see out of the window of Woodside Senior Apartments is not over the apartment building at Alvarado Gardens at the same time. And nor is the sun going to cause this sunlight on the ceiling and on the walls. This is a distinct method of identifying that you're under surveillance. That when you pull your panties down, or men, when you pull your boxers down, whatever you wear, it's a matter of public information. Every move that you make and everything that's going on inside of that private space, which is not only where you live, your dwelling place, your castle, but also the bathroom. It's disgusting. This is sexual violence that's practiced. Everybody that lives at Woodside Senior Apartments that has any access or custody of children, they've lost them. They've been engaged in sexual violence, and no sex offender and no gang stalking sex offender is going to be treated differently. All right. The entity is engaging in this pattern of conduct and is doing so while this fake sun remains over this apartment, and the entity is flying in a circle around the helicopter while you're looking at this light source over me in Ontario, California. So again, I want to go ahead and let you see same exact time. And this is the P.O.C.
The PD is currently flying in circles over the property and amplifying the noise. This is the light source. It's currently 9:53 a.m.
They flew a circle around the fake sun.
The people of the state,
these are demons.
that is including my employer, the people of the state who are residents here
And that's
in
what fuels the
relevant
state of
position are
California.
monitoring with the Los Angeles Police Department.
And the demon-possessed are monitoring at Woodside Senior Apartments, and they act with impunity. I continue to document psychological torture inside of this apartment, which represents a private space, which is also federal stalking under Title 18, Section 2261A, subsections 1 and 2. And under HUD regulations, it is described as technical abuse. Federal stalking under Title 18 satisfies what is outlawed under HUD regulations regarding technical abuse. The entity is using my communication device to psychologically torture me while they're monitoring what it is that I'm doing on my devices, inflicting harms, criminally interfering with quiet enjoyment based on the fact that I'm documenting, based on the fact that I'm publishing documentation, and absolute psychopaths who do not regard the fact that they're losing custody of their children because they continuously gang stalk me. So, and the fact that when you're facing what is homelessness, because you will no longer get housing under HUD, because you will no longer be able to participate in HUD programming and the like as a gang stalking landlord. This is not the time to now take seriously the fact that you're going to prison also. And everybody at Woodside Senior Apartments is going to be federally prosecuted. And they will be treated in an identical manner because the state of California is gang stalking. So now that universe is isolated to the treatment of the prosecution of Woodside Senior Apartments, where all 144 units are engaged in the P.O.C. They're all in relevant position. Okay, it is currently, again, it's 10:23 a.m. This is documentation of the pattern of conduct, and I just want to go over really quickly. This is the light source again that you can see. The entity is rapidly, you'll see, I captured this at 9:45, so this is moments earlier. As I document, this is not the natural environment, so the environment rapidly changes. If I take a picture of impossible light activity, 30 seconds later it disappears. That's documentation of stalking with light. That's also psychological torture. It's also an interruption, an interference, a criminal one with quiet enjoyment. Quiet enjoyment is not that which is only merely audible. Quiet enjoyment is your right to maintain in a peaceful environment that is, again, not going to be substantially disrupted on a 24-hour basis. The entity is inherently violating that through amplification of everything. But the entity is also doing that when you are looking at what is the interference with your television. That is a psychological aspect with regard to quiet enjoyment. With regard to the presence of this engineered light, this is relevant to a psychological aspect with regard to what is quiet enjoyment as well. The entity is in violation of all manner. And your criminal violation of what is a contractual right, which is not going to be limited to me because I'm not on the lease, because you have no exception to engage in the criminal pattern of conduct with the state of California based on the fact that the target individual who was facing murder by the state that you're engaging in that criminal conduct with, that you're criminally facilitating, is not on the lease. Okay, that is absurd, and that's not how law operates. And this is also disincentivizing any landlord, any property owner, any people of the state, okay, to engage in the pattern of conduct with the government, because they will learn that the government can't help them. The government has actually criminally contributed to public corruption, and they have made their own decisions. They've made their own choices to do so. But the public corruption, it's on the watch of the state. And there are people that are going to federal prison where they belong, but they're going to federal prison because of the corrupt government actors, the corrupt officials that have put a lot of people in prison because of their gross criminal activity. It is currently, again, 10:25 a.m. and this is POC.